I'd like to start this video by sharing with you a map of the global medical maldistribution. So this is a map of the world representing the number of inhabitants per doctor. So if we look, for example, in the US, we can see that there is an average of about 390 for inhabitants per doctor. In France, we have about 300 inhabitants per doctor. Whereas if we go to Nicaragua, for example, the ratio is 2,700 to 1, versus if we go to Tanzania, it gets even higher, 50,000 to 1. So that's clearly a maldistribution of medical personnel worldwide. Note that if a country has more than 435 inhabitants per doctor, they might not be able to reach their Millennium Development Goals. However, let me also talk to you about 3 key opportunities that can help us break this medical divide. First, cell phone coverage. 90% of the world population is currently covered by a cell phone tower. Then, graphical interfaces are actually very, very powerful. So interfaces where we can use, for example, an avatar, basically a drawing of a person, to mediate healthcare conversations are very, very powerful, because the body is a natural way to talk about health. Not only that, but interfaces that are primarily graphical and have 2D and 3D objects, video, and sound can help in breaking illiteracy and language barriers among users. And then last are smartphones. Smartphones are currently being adopted quicker and quicker, and not only that, but they provide not only communication and computing power, but also they provide very powerful graphical interfaces where one can now define interfaces using a touch screen and basically icons. Not only that, but you can attach sensors to it. So I'm going to start this presentation backwards. I'm going to show you the result of our research. The VirTelMed web application is implemented as a mobile web app, and as such it's accessible from a smartphone, a tablet, or a desktop computer. Here we can see the application is divided in 3 sections. In the center you have the avatar that represents the patient. Then on the left we have the users that are connected to this specific telemedicine session, and all the users are actually seeing the same thing except for the language, and we'll get into that in a second. We can change the patient. We can use the generic male avatar, a generic female avatar, or in the future we'll be able to add new avatars, new patients, by clicking on the empty image. Note that our focus has been on the interface, so basically we've implemented the front end. However, we haven't implemented the back end system, which would allow us to register and to extend some of the functionalities. Here we have the set of users that are connected to this specific telemedicine session. Again, clicking on the empty image, we could log in with a new user, or we could register a new user by clicking on the empty image again. If we click on a specific user, we can see their profile, we can see their rating, and we'll be able to see digital badges here representing their different skills. We can actually change the language. For example, we can put it in Spanish from Nicaragua. We could put it in English, for example. Note that we can also do is, once we have it in a specific language, we can actually change some of the translation for that language. For example, If we put it in English, we can go to pain, and this is used to represent burning pain. And by clicking at the small arrow in any of the concepts in the interface, we can actually provide a new graphical representation for that concept. So we could, in this case, select a different type of fire representing burning pain. And then we're done. We just save it. Note that we could also translate the interface based on another language. For example, we have it in English, and we want to use the English translation to translate it to Nicaraguan Spanish. In this case, everything is in English. Here on the right, we have these menus for representing symptoms. So we saw before, we can represent burning pain, we can represent needle-like pain, we can represent different types of pain, and again, we can always add a new type of pain. So basically, we can change the representation of any concept, and we can add new concepts. For skin, we can add a rash. Then the next menu is to represent living conditions. So we can represent the person lives on a hut. We can represent their diet. For the every donut, for example, she has two ice creams. This prototype that I demoed was built based on an ethnographic study, which was split into two trips to Nicaragua, one to the Atlantic and one to the Pacific coast, where we actually observed Nicaraguan patients of medically underserved populations being served by American students under the supervision of medical doctors, and that was very useful for learning the different language and cultural barriers between doctors and patients when they are not from the same region or country. The results from the ethnographic studies were used to not only design the product and the system behind it, but also different requirements for global telemedicine systems. Well, the second actually prototype was finished by August 2011, and it was evaluated both in California and Nicaragua. And then the results of this user evaluation and the ethnographic studies, combined with some literature review, were used to build the current prototype that we saw in this video. I mentioned with the user evaluation on August 2011. This user evaluation showed us that our basic intuition and ideas were actually in the right direction. Here I'm showing one of the results, which is actually the intuitiveness of the interface. So if you look at the first graph, it's the result of a questionnaire that we ran among several UCI students and Nicaraguan patients. And you can see how the interface was rated for the most part as very intuitive overall. If we split the evaluation between how we represented different symptoms and how we represented the concept of using an avatar for representing a patient, regarding the symptoms, you can see that how there's still some work to do. And regarding the idea of using an avatar as the representation of a patient, you can see how it was very well received. And then the user evaluation for the current prototype is actually based on the concept of peer-based commons production. So instead of having one of us go to a community and evaluate the prototype, since this is very limited in terms of the amount of user studies we can do, we design a system and a methodology for conducting remote and distributed user evaluation. So basically, if you go to our website is at virtelmed.isr.uci.edu. Here you'll be able to find some information on the project, but more important, you'll be able to find a link to the application that we were just demoing. And you'll be able to find this section, usability studies, where you'll find not only the questionnaires that we used, and in fact there is a template that you can anybody can use, which has been licensed under a Creative Commons license that allows reuse and remix by anybody. So in here we can see the questionnaire and how license under Creative Commons Attribution Share Alike 3.0 license. But also, you can also go to the results section. And this is a public repository where anybody that executes a user study using the questionnaire that I just mentioned can upload their public results here, and they can be merged. Not only that, but as I mentioned before, the VirTelMed application is open source, and the source code can be found under the files. So anybody can extend it, anybody can do a user study, and then they can all be combined to gain way more knowledge than if each one of us was doing their own user studies in their own silo. And I'd like to finish showing our YouTube channel. We have a VirTelMed YouTube channel where there's different videos of different medical symptoms and medical concepts. Each video actually has their equivalent SNOMED CT identification number. And in this channel you can not only view the different videos that we've been developing based on our user studies and interviews, but you can also say whether you like them or not. This way we can get a vote of how many people like a specific video or not, and which ones are more popular and represent better certain symptoms. You can actually remix this video. This video has been licensed under a Creative Commons license again. So actually remix it, and you can create your own based on, for example, other Creative Commons videos, combine them, and then upload your own representation of a specific symptom. Or even better, you can also respond to this video with a specific comment or with a video response by uploading your own video that for your own community represents better this concept, and then have other people vote on it and also respond. And I'd like to invite you to go to our YouTube channel, download VirTelMed and extend it, use our questionnaires for your own user studies, share the results, and go play with our application. Thank you very much.